We just finished the Canon EOS C50 lab test, and here's what numbers won't tell you.
Don't always exclude a camera just because of those tests. Try it. If you think that you like it, if you think that it's going to help you, use it. I used it. I really enjoyed the image coming out of it, and it's a nice little camera.
Specs versus reality.
This is the best case example how there is always a bit of a difference between the, let's say, our lab test, which is literally we're talking numbers and so on, and the reality.
The full breakdown, plus Vimeo Layoffs, a potential Leica sale, and Google's push into educating filmmakers on AI via Sundance. Let's dive right in.
This is Focus Check, the weekly Cinetech podcast.
Welcome to episode 101. Yes, of CineD Focus Check podcast. Welcome back after the 100th episode. So basically, we're starting fresh.
All over again, no?
It's right. This is a normal news episode, so let's just dive into the segments we're going to talk about. So first of all, we published finally a lab test of the Canon EOS C50, and we're going to start with that. We'll talk about the first firmware update. I think it's the first one.
That's right. It's the first
significant one of the Nikon ZR.
The non-significant one.
The 1.1. Well, yeah, let's see. We'll talk about, unfortunately, being right about Vimeo, slashing jobs. We'll talk about a potential Leica sale that Bloomberg reported about and what that means. We'll also talk about the acquisition of INOVATIV cards by ProClip. Then we'll briefly mention the Oscar nominations, especially the cinematography category, of course. Some updates to monitors, especially from Accsoon and SmallHD when it comes to software and capabilities of their latest models, actually. Some updates from Iodyne on the Pro data, which now comes in even bigger with even bigger capacities. SWIT batteries, which are now available, which is these little batteries for camera batteries that you can charge via USB-C, which we think are great, are now available. We'll talk about a Google-Sundance cooperation, which is a bit of a segue to an AI discussion. And that will be, of course, something that, some people will frown upon, but it's something important to mention. So Google is trying to sneak their way into filmmaking somehow. We'll talk about an update to Eddy AI. We'll talk about LumaFusion for Android 2.5. And we'll talk about Bob Poole using this huge FUJINON, what is it called? The Duvo.
The lens. Wait.
The lens.
What is this now?
$250,000 lens.
$260,000. So I don't
for
think
wildlife.
That's.
But we'll mention it, and we'll dive into a article on visual effects compositing basics. All right, so let's get started with the EOS C50 lab test, Johnny. So a lot of people have been waiting for this.
That's true, and you know why I love this test? Because the lab test results are not that great. In full frame, not that great. But I was working with the camera back in Japan. I think it was summer 2025. And I really enjoyed working with it. And I also liked the image coming out of it. And this is the best case example how there is always a bit of a difference between the, let's say, our lab test, which is literally we're talking numbers and so on, and the reality. So before even diving into the results themselves, I want to tell people what we do here is we really try to standardize. We really try to make those lab tests so it doesn't serve as a marketing tool for companies, but that's the kind of real reality of when it comes to Latitude, dynamic range, and rolling shutter. But don't always exclude a camera just because of those tests. Try it. If you think that you like it, if you think that it's going to help you, use it. I used it. I really enjoyed the image coming out of it, and it's a nice little camera. And if somebody from Canon is watching, I wish it had a EVF, but that's yeah. Anyway, so the results that we are getting. Let me just get everything here. So I mean, should we dive really into results? I mean, or just
a little bit.
summarize?
I mean, we just basically, just to explain that we usually test, of course, full frame and kind of the largest sensor area that is testable usually, because that's what a lot of people will want. In this case, we tested the rolling shutter, for example, for the 7K 3x2 open gate mode at 25 frames per second. And it turned out rolling shutter results are, okay, but not exceptional, 18.1 milliseconds. However, very large area, right? I mean, that's because it's open gate, that's understandable. In 4K 120 mode, it's only 7.1 milliseconds. Of course, has to be with high frame rates, has to be faster. The other DCI 17:9 modes, which is probably what most people will use, 14.3 milliseconds, which is a lot more manageable. Dynamic range, we tested a 7K C-RAW at ISO 800, 9.98 stops at SNR2 and 11.2 stops at SNR1. Half a stop less than the C400. 0.8 stops less than the R5 Mark II and 1.3 stops less than the R1. Now, the Super 35 5K C-RAW performs better, 11 and 12.3 stops at SNR1, which is unusual, and that's also something that some people commented, that there's a reason why the Super 35 mode performs better.
Yeah, but also, but let's say that Canon is not specifying the reason. So this is something that we will try to most probably get the camera again, retest it in the Super 35 mode, just that we are all in the same page. And by the way, this is also important because a lot of the comments on our lab test this time were about the ranking of the camera.
Just before you say that, I'm just saying we need to retest the latitudes of the Super 35 mode.
Dynamic range also.
We tested. That's what I
That's true. That's true. Dynamic range.
So we because that will implement. Yeah, exposure latitude is where it supposedly performs better, because we see already better dynamic range results there. Yeah. And we didn't, because Canon specified something in the white paper which we must have missed, so we probably have to retest that mode, which is easy. We can get easy access to this camera. But yeah. What did you want to say about the...
What did I want to say?
Well, let's just move on.
Okay.
Exposure latitude, 8 stops of usable dynamic range in 12-bit C-RAW. The noise becomes problematic at around 4 steps under. 4 stops under, yeah. So 3 stops still look okay. And it can be, like noise, with noise reduction, it looks fine. With 4 stops under pushed back, you see it's, I don't know if you see this on YouTube, hopefully you can see it even through the compression, that this is something that, cannot be salvaged anymore, as opposed to the 3 stops under pushed back can probably be fixed. And here we see with noise reduction, 4 steps under, it's already not good anymore, right? So that's kind of where the limit is. Noise becomes, just generally problematic with 4 stops under, but fixed pattern noise shows up at 5 stops under. That's here. So we're starting to see some fixed pattern noise here, which is of course very hard to get rid of with any kind of noise reduction. So that's where we basically say game over for the latitude of this camera. Now the verdict is that this is an average to lower end performance for a camera like that. However, you always have to keep in mind, this is a $3,900 cinema camera. It's not, it's actually, like you said, for what it offers quite a lot actually for that kind of price, considering it also goes under the cinema line. But the dynamic range and latitude results are average. And it's a good gimbal camera or B cam to a C80 or a C400. The Canon RAW philosophy is that's good, minimal noise processing, highest resolution, but noisy. But we prefer that because you can always apply noise reduction in post, which usually is better than built-in noise reduction, because of course more processing can be thrown at the image to get a better result. However, there's limits to what you can do, and the internal compressed codecs are of course more processed out of the box. Yeah, but the good thing is just simply you can trust a Canon RAW image, Canon cinema camera RAW image when it comes to getting something as unprocessed as possible.
Yeah. Well, in the comments that we got from you guys, we saw that many of you are actually commenting on the way that we are ranking the cameras. So we are actually working really hard now to make sure that it's very clear. So we are comparing apples to apples and orange to oranges, and not like a bit of a mishmash between full frame and Super 35, because I think your comments were justified, and we of course took it immediately and seriously, and immediately working on it.
We'll actually have been working on this for some months now. It's just not easy to come up with a ranking that makes sense, because originally when we started the ranking, the dynamic range ranking, of course, it was a much more homogeneous group of cameras that you could compare. But first time we saw the problem is when we, for example, tested the iPhone 15 Pro, and that had Apple Log. The first time they had Apple Log and ProRes internal recording. And then we saw it actually showed up like a
quite high
3 or 4, and it didn't make any sense because the latitude was not great. But the dynamic range result was great because they applied so much noise reduction to the image, even though it's log, right? So that makes it very hard. So looking at this ranking, we know that there are issues, and we're working on a solution that is trying to satisfy all the needs that are out there. Because like you guys said, it's really comparing apples and oranges right now. And what shows up there now is simply showing the results that you put in a database in a structured manner, but it's not comparing the same things. So this will be updated. Good.
Great.
Let's move on to the Nikon ZR firmware update version 1.0.
So let's start with saying that this is not the firmware that we were hoping for.
What were you hoping for?
Well, we were hoping for having false color, anamorphic discrete, although none of the Nikon cameras do have it, but that's a wishful thinking. We still wanted this. We wanted more compressed red any options. We wanted
for
more
the raw codecs.
That's right. We wanted more of like a refined H.265 recording, so more robust and less soft, let's say it.
Which actually the Z6 Mark III has. It just simply looks better.
It looks better. So we all in all, we wanted much more. Also, in terms of, I think Nikon themselves promised a ProRes. I think it was LT, if I'm not mistaken. They promised different variations of the ProRes recording, and obviously it did not make it to this firmware update. What we did get is a wired timecode via the 3.5 mic input, which I still want to understand how it really works, if we're actually blocking the entire audio channel or only one of the two channels, basically, like left and right. This is something that I want to understand.
I think they say it sacrifices one audio channel.
One audio channel. Okay, so that makes sense, and that's, of course, good to know. And then there's a red-like file naming, which is the real number, the clip number, date, and then there's a random ID, which is really great, so you don't get any duplications. And then there's a extended recording mode, which from 125 minutes now will be 6 hours.
That's
but
great.
This is that's great, but this doesn't apply to any of the raw recording modes.
Yeah, but this was something that I was surprised about anyway, that this camera had this limitation to 125 minutes. Not that you very often need this, but still, it's not there anymore for any modes except for the raw modes.
That's right. And this one, I think I really like it. This is the highlight clipping indicator on histogram and wave form.
That's good. Yeah,
that's really great. This is kind of putting you more on the safe side when you expose the red raw material. And then there's a support for 50 custom LUTs instead of the up to 10 until now. So it's a good direction, of course. So,
but it's more like an incremental update. It's not the big thing we were hoping for.
That's right. But
and something that would bring it up to par with the Z6 Mark III, basically, when it comes to a lot of the compressed recording modes.
That's right. I mean, we will be at CP Plus end of February, and we will have a chance to talk to the Nikon representatives in general, and to know where we are heading to with those type of firmware updates. And when we have when we have an answer, we will of course share it with you guys.
Cool. Good. Let's move on to some industry insights before we come back to some gear, just to mix it up a little bit. So, unfortunately, I hate to be right sometimes. Like maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, I wrote this article, which was the subject of another podcast that, which was based on what's his name, Matt Johnson's video, who a little bit ranted about Vimeo changing and kind of ditching their community. And I dived into this a little bit deeper and kind of did a little bit of research and found out that, well, the company that acquired Vimeo, Bending Spoons, last year, they cannot be blamed for all the problems of Vimeo because a lot of those problems actually were there before. They ditched the community even before that. However, Bending Spoons having a reputation of kind of, slashing staff after they take over was something I worried about in that article and that we talked about also, and now it has happened. So just like they did with the staff of Filmic Pro or WeTransfer when they took over, there are reports now that the majority of the staff of Vimeo has been let go just 4 months after their acquisition by Bending Spoons.
We're talking over 1,000 people that are literally going home.
Yeah.
First of all, they paid quite a lot of money for the whole deal, and obviously they're trying to make it like the value of it even higher by eliminating people. Many of them we heard are even engineers. So basically, probably we will see no innovation here. Hopefully, they will maintain what there is now, not that we are all screwed up. Because if you remember, Vimeo kind of shifted from individual use to
enterprise use.
Enterprise, yeah. So some of the enterprises, including us, we are kind of dependent on Vimeo to perform well. Let's see where that's gonna lead us to. But
yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. It's always, I mean, of course, it's kind of these VC type companies like Bending Spoons. They're basically there to squeeze out more profit of the company. So they're basically taking what they have and just slashing costs in order for this to be more sustainable. Having said that, so far at least, I haven't seen any of the business that they took over to be out of business. WeTransfer is still there. Filmic Pro is still there. In what shape is the other question? Is there still innovation?
It's a
not really, but
duck.
it's existing. It still happens. But yeah, it's not a great sign, of course, of what's happened. Of course, I mean it's just the last step in a long series of, unfortunately, decline also in terms of value for this company, because of course they were valued much higher when they entered the stock exchange in 2021 and then were taken off the stock exchange when Bending Spoons acquired them. So let's just hope that they will be around more. I mean, there's interesting discussions actually. I posted this also on LinkedIn and on our own comments on the website and on social media in general. People are speculating where to move to. And it's funny because Vimeo, when you realize people are suggesting different things. Of course, our audience, very many of them actually are looking from the community perspective, which they have abandoned long ago anyway. So they're suggesting there's somebody actually working on something.
Exactly. I think we should give a shout here because it's it's nice throughout the comments to see that, first of all, we all wanted, let's say, kind of a new home that we can upload high quality and discuss about stuff and nominate stuff and so on.
Yeah.
Because maybe YouTube is not always the place for that. And in one of the comments, we have a person by the name Guy Loftus. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. And he's trying to build something that will actually can accommodate what we want. And I think he deserves a shout. We hope he will. We know. I mean, that's like a marathon. You have to build the infrastructure. You have to invest the money. You have to make sure that people are aware of what you're doing. People should start to upload videos and so on. But at the end of the day, it also it's a business. It must make sense for Guy himself to run the whole thing. So maybe, if we find ways to support Guy or anybody else that think that he has a solution how to do this, I think we can. I
mean, he built something called rushes.cc, and he's still taking feedback. He's very active in our comments, and he's encouraging people to try it out. It almost seemed like a little bit of blatant advertising in the comments, but I also replied to him that we allow it this time because he seems genuinely somebody who's trying to make something new, to find a new home for people. However, of course, we have to say that, I mean, it's one developer And if he loses interest in 2 years' time, what is happening with you? I raised this concern. It's just something that has to be mentioned, because if you also as a user put in work to upload, that's the problem that a lot of people with Vimeo have now. You uploaded content for 15 years or whatever, and then if the platform will cease to exist or not allow you to search for content anymore, what are you doing? Like, are you losing that footage? Because not everybody has an archive where it's difficult. So just keep that in mind.
It's an egg and chicken thing.
It's but on the other hand, in some of those things, I'm happy to trust. Unfortunately, it's better for me to trust a bigger company with your stuff, because at least there's a bigger chance of them actually still existing in 5 years down the time. I wish him all the luck, but I all the stories I've heard from people who have started social media sites and stuff like that, all gone. They're gone. I mean,
but you mean what? Trust big companies like Vimeo?
No, not Vimeo. Well, in general. I mean, there's a bigger chance of them being still around than somebody doing this from scratch, or like Google or whatever. It's just.
Yeah, I see it a bit differently. Of course, we have to be cautious, but on the other hand, I want to believe that we have to give chance for the smaller ones. So maybe it's to start with some stuff which is less important for us. Maybe also Guy or anybody else have to take it step by step, and not literally ask you not to upload the valuable stuff first, or just for sharing stuff.
But that's what I said, that's the funny thing. That's the differences I see on the comments on our side, which is more people looking at the community. And I think there are like 30, 40 comments on my LinkedIn post. And there's more people who are actually thinking about the enterprise side. And if you're looking for, infrastructure, basically, uploading your videos to embed into your own platform, whatever that may be, either to present to clients for reviews or really run your own platform like we do with MZ, then Guy's solution is not the one. You need to look at others. And there's a couple out there who are... The thing with Vimeo is it's only known because of the community thing, right?
To us.
In general, I mean, that's why they are widely known. There's a lot of not a lot, but there's a few very large platforms that are infrastructure providers. There is actually Cloudflare, for example, the CDN that also we use, which is basically a content delivery network. So if you run a big website and you need it available at all times around the world, you use a CDN, which is basically mirroring the content from your server simultaneously around the world, which kind of mitigates attacks. If there are attacks to the website, they're very hard to take down. And also it enable, if you live in a big city, for example, there's very likely that Cloudflare has a data center very close to you, so they can actually serve that content very quickly to you. That's how it works. They also have a service that is very popular for video hosting, which is for enterprise. Then there is Mux, there is
plenty of those,
Akamai. There's a lot of those companies that probably most of the people never heard of. But if you're looking at infrastructure, it's probably also time to move on. And I'm just saying, Vimeo, we all know Vimeo for the community. We've discussed this before. The community is gone. Right now, they're not about community anymore. They are about enterprise. And if that is in danger, of course, there's other solutions out there. But leave us a comment if you have actually good alternatives to Vimeo for various things, whether it's for the community or for the enterprise or whatever embedded use. I'm very interested in that. I think we should also cover this more because I think, yes, we do. We want to be less dependent on a few players like Google/YouTube and so on. And of course, YouTube cannot serve a lot of those things in general. So just let us know and drop us an email at podcast@cined.com. All right, moving on to another bit of industry news. So Bloomberg reported this week that the owners of Leica Camera AG, which is the company owning Leica and Lights, is reportedly considering a sale of the business at around 1 billion euros. It's owned now by Andreas Kaufmann, who's an Austrian billionaire who bought Leica, I think in 2013. No, actually 2006 or something. 2005. Yeah, 2005. He took a controlling stake. Now, none of this is confirmed, but we report about this because Bloomberg usually has very good sources and they don't report stuff if it's not true. And there seems to be Sequoia Capital China and a Swedish private equity company seem to be some of the potential bidders. Of course, nothing is confirmed yet, but it's.
But in general, how would you feel if Leica will be owned by a Chinese company? Because I'm asking because Leica and lights are almost like a European heritage. So I don't want to say that they are one of the last fortresses, but in general, how would you feel?
I don't know. It's another example of how innovation and technology is moving from, in general, Western countries to Asia. And of course it's concerning. But if you look at they've actually had, we reported about this, 4 consecutive years of record revenue, which is surprising because we are aware, we reported about that ARRI has a difficult time, which can probably be compared because they are, of course, high-priced cameras,
German companies,
exactly. And Leica is really like it's not a kind of camera you need; it's more a camera everybody wants in a way. So it's more like almost like a luxury item. But they've had record revenue, which is partly also because of their cooperation with Xiaomi. And
but this is really something to investigate. It seems as if the higher the prices of the cameras are, more people want it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because you say if we are in a difficult times right now, who can afford it? But apparently there will always be those who want to be unique, and this red dot will appeal to them.
But it's the phones that are that successful.
I'm not so sure it's also I'm not so sure if it's only the phones. I mean, we don't have any. Maybe we have to look for like this kind of income cake and see where the money is coming from.
It is a lot of it is coming from the phones.
But when we are hearing, and I'm not so sure if we covered it or not, but they are now really developing their own sensor. They want to go back and do their own sensor in their own cameras instead of relying on Sony sensors. That means that A, there is a money to develop and produce a sensor. B, they are really thinking how to make the cameras even more unique, beyond the red dot, beyond the engineering that goes into the actual building the camera. It's almost like having a wider separation from Panasonic and the Lumix line that they've been cooperating quite close to each other. So it's all very interesting. And actually, the more I think about it, maybe we should really try to get simply an interview with Mr. Kaufman. I mean, that's just...
There was a German podcast, actually, that had him like half a year ago. So
okay, that's outdated. We should talk to him now.
Yeah, he rarely gave anything in English, but we'll try. Yeah, I can do it in German and we subtitle it. Let's see. But we'll try to get hold of him. I mean, I think they're probably doing well with licensing their brand. I mean, first of all, there's the L mount, of course, which induces a fee, and also the phone thing, right? I mean, it basically they are. It's not just a sticker thing. They actually have a development center for phone cameras in China, I think.
Yeah. But not only that, you talked about the mount. I just want to say, because we can see this. It's amazing for me. The L mount in general, this is not the most popular mount. Sony selling many more cameras, Canon, of course, and Nikon, and then you have FUJIFILM and so. But still, to be part of the L mount alliance, obviously, companies are regarding it as something. It's almost like a stamp of recognition. Look, we are part of a recognized alliance. And lens companies, now mostly from China, are willing to spend the money to join this alliance, and that's really nice. I mean, I think it's very.
It just was such a smart move. I mean, it's freeing. It's freeing for those companies, because we know when the mirrorless mounts came along, like Canon made their own thing. I mean, first Sony, the Canon, Nikon, and then where did that leave the rest of them? They kind of, I think Panasonic realized, we're probably not big enough to make our own mount, because then
there's no justification.
They would be very, very limited with the lens choice. So when they together decided to make a mount together, and of course, I mean, Leica being very smart about this, because opening this up to anybody who probably follows some certifications, but like companies can join this. It's not a closed thing. Means that this is business for them forever. Basically, as long people buy lenses, they will benefit from that, and it doesn't even need to involve their own lenses or their own cameras, as long as the mount is involved.
It's a very smart move, and not only that, this is something also that we didn't report about, but Viltrox is being sued by Nikon for using the lens mount, and we're gonna see this type of Japanese companies / European chasing Chinese companies more and more, because I think many of those companies are kind of sick and tired of others making money on their back, kind of reverse engineering. And maybe as long as those lenses were only mechanical, like let's say stupid lenses, it was not okay, but kind of they were blind to what's going on. But now that more of those Chinese companies are coming with autofocus lenses, that means they're really infringing the patents here, and they're reverse engineering. Maybe this is also what allows them to sell those lenses in dumped prices. So eventually it's really damaging also those companies directly and indirectly, depending on how we look at it. And I think there will be an end for it. There will be a point that all those Japanese companies who owns the mounts will literally chase Chinese companies, will start to sue them left and right. And that will make the Chinese companies, A, really seeking for solutions and sign agreements. B, it might be that the lens prices will go up. Yeah, we have to be aware of this, because at the end somebody will have to pay the bill. But back to the topic, as you say, Leica opening the mount for others to join, amazing move, and obviously, let's see, that will also make the value higher.
I think, like a company in general, I think never, if they think the business, if a company thinks that the business is great and it's growing and we have plans for the next 5 or 10 years, they probably wouldn't sell, I think. And that's something, I think it's a bit of a sign of the times.
You think so about this?
I think it's a sign of the times of the camera business, when like a stakeholder like that is thinking about a sale, and it's similar to the ARRI business. And I'm talking specifically about the high-end brands. I don't think so. Here. I think so.
Mr. Kaufman saved Leica at 2005. This is 21 years ago.
Yeah,
I think he's in a position and an age that he can say, I did my bit, and I can move on with life.
Yeah. So it doesn't exclude each other,
No, but I don't think that he's selling because looking forward and how, like that in any way or in any case, of course, we can't know what the future will bring, but I don't think that this is his main motive here. I think it's only my assumption, being maybe more or less in the same age with few less zeros in the bank. I think that that's something that I would have probably do also. There's a point that you say it's enough. It's move on, do other stuff in life, and just enjoy. So
but it doesn't contradict each other. I'm just saying it's something that like it's almost like a pattern now with what also Bloomberg reported about the ARRI thing.
ARRI is different. ARRI is completely different.
I don't know. It's a different ownership. Yeah,
but ARRI is really catering only the higher end, and they're completely lacking the middle and the lower end for whatever reasons. I don't want to go into this again. Leica is actually everywhere on the higher end. Yeah. Mid-tier and lower tier. They're literally very clever to have a grip on everything.
Yeah, which we didn't mention actually. Of course, they also own the Lights brand, which is the high-end cinematography lenses, which are quite popular, but also very high-priced. Okay, yeah. So actually, sticking with the topic of acquisitions, now INOVATIV cards, the quite famous, DIT cards and so on, camera assistance cards. That company was acquired by a company called ProClip, which, did you know them before?
No.
I also didn't know them. The ProClip USA is a company that is a precision mounting solutions company. And I think it's a good, if you look at what they do, it's very complementary, because ProClip is really about device mounting, and INOVATIV, of course, about the mobile workstations. And they say that the products will stay under the same brand and philosophy. the INOVATIV founder, Patrick Blewett, will remain with the company. So he'll probably continue to lead this company. Now, we've seen, of course, the potential benefits here is faster product development with more resources, hopefully pricing improvements. We know that the INOVATIV cards, while highly regarded, a lot of people call these things Magliner. Why? There used to be a patent on this. The company Magliner had a patent on this for a very long time. And it's almost like, in different industries, there is always one, you almost like a lot of people still say to softboxes, Chimera, same thing, right? It used to be only Chimera who was allowed to do them because they had the patent on them. And at some point this ran out, and then other companies were able to enter the scene. Magliners were very expensive, INOVATIV is very expensive, and now we see companies like Tilta and SmallRig releasing cards, which probably, we haven't tested them yet, but probably very high quality and for a lot less money. This Boulder card from Tilta, which I think we reported about recently, we're talking about something $1,500, and this is, some of those cards go. Of course, there is electric ones also, and so on. But it's easy to spend $10,000 on a card, and I think that's probably something that ProClip will want to address to remain competitive, because we know Tilta does their homework and they make things that actually work on set too.
It's actually quite interesting, because when you look at this, you ask yourself why suddenly there's such a renaissance with those cards. Why? It's in a way it's a niche thing. On big productions you need them. I'm not so sure how much you need them on medium-sized productions.
Well, I think they have become, if you look at the products themselves, they have become so much more flexible over the last few years. Especially, you can collapse them into nothing and then just put them in a normal car. And if you have any type of medium-sized production which needs a gear preparation table, or you shoot out and about, it's very convenient to have them. It's just they were priced very prohibitively. You usually would get them at a rental house. It's one of the things you get with the stuff. Like if you rent high-end gear, you also rent one of those things.
Yeah.
But I think it would make a lot of sense for a lot of productions. I would love to have them, sometimes even on a documentary shoot, because you're out and about in the middle of the winter in the woods doing gimbal shots all day and drone shots, and you have literally nowhere to place your gear. You know how it is, like swap lenses on the camera, especially gimbal balancing. Horrible. That's where this thing comes in, and if one is affordable and can be collapsed into nothing in your car, that's great.
We might surprise the guys towards the end of the year. But back to the topic. First of all, it looks like as if INOVATIV, it's not that they have a huge, so many products in their portfolio. I think they're doing, it's mounting stuff, but the core business is, of course, those cards.
Additions to the cards, yeah.
Yeah, so actually, I'm very interested to see how this corporation, it's not really a corporation, they just were acquired, yeah, but how it will be, and as you said, how if the competition with Tilta and SmallRig, we are just naming two because those are the ones that are kind of on the radar when it comes to value for money. And when they target a niche or a product, that they're not gonna let go. They will just make it better and in the best affordable price as far as they see this. So let's see.
So the question is, will those cards become more affordable, or is this just another consolidation story because the founders/owners realized they can't really compete with Tilta and SmallRig when it comes to price? So we'll see.
We will follow
what happens. All right, let's move on to Academy Awards nominations. So the 98th Academy Award nominations are out now. Interestingly, for the first time ever, we have one movie that got an all-time record of 16 nominations. That is Sinners, and the cinematography race is on. It's a very diverse field. We have nominated Autumn Durald Arkapaw for Sinners. That's her first nomination. She's well known for Loki. I've met her at the Camera Image Festival a couple of years ago. Very, very nice person. Very, very talented. She also did, what is it called? Wakanda and a lot of other big movies. And yeah, very dedicated to her craft. Also very engaged in the industry, in discussions and so on. If you want to check out, I think there's a couple of ASC Clubhouse conversations and other interviews with her, which are very interesting about her work. We also have Marty Supreme nominated in cinematography. That's Darius Condi. And Dan Lawston for Frankenstein. He's Benicio del Toro's cinematographer, and it's his second nomination after Shape of Water. Michael Bauman for One Battle After Another, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Such an amazing film. I recommend everybody to watch this. And Adolfo Veloso for Train Dreams. So I think the awards are probably, well, they're actually on March 15th, a little bit later than last year. And we'll see. This will also be hosted again by Conan O'Brien. I liked his hosting last year, so let's see who will take home this statue. All right, let's move on, or actually let's move back to a little bit of gear news. We have 2 monitor updates, which are basically firmware updates to, monitors / transmitters that are out there. Let's actually start with SmallHD. The PageOS update 6.3 adds fleet control, portrait mode, and Canon camera control. Now, there's a lot. The great thing about SmallHD monitors is that they really keep updating their stuff for quite a long time. And I think it's their operating system that is still the main selling point, honestly, at this point in time when it comes to what their monitors can do, even though the competition is, of course, catching up. But I think it is the support of portrait mode and also having the whole menu switch to portrait mode when you turn the monitor is a big sign of the times. We see more and more of those micro dramas, especially, this is very popular in Asia, but it's also sweeping over to the West now, which is, we might have an interview with somebody who's working on this soonish, but very interesting to see, camera monitor manufacturers like SmallHD actually address this, because there's a lot more need for this kind of stuff.
You know why those micro dramas were so popular in Far East, especially in China?
I guess everybody's watching it on the train.
No, it's because for a very long time it fell under the radar of the authorities. So you could
the censorship,
yeah. So you could actually do some stuff that you can't show on a bigger set or bigger movies. That's why it was so popular, and that's why it developed so much. But now the authorities kind of recognize this. So I'm very curious to know to see if that will continue to be popular as it was or not. Let's see. That's just so
the politicians learned to hold their phone vertically.
Exactly.
Too. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
But back to SmallHD, I think 2 things. Nothing to do now with the actual update, which is great. It's always nice to see updates. By the way, I guess it's free update.
It's free, and there's a few more things. Yeah.
But one thing is, if you noticed, and we are checking B&H deals on every day just to see if there are any good deals for you guys, and then share with you anything. And of course, we are earning a small percentage. It's not a secret with affiliate commission, but it's interesting for me to see that so many products that are being reduced in price are from the Videndum group, and one of the companies from Videndum is SmallHD. And they're literally slashing prices of products. Like on the day of recording, we see there's a 32-inch true reference OLED display, $5,000.
The big
less.
one, yeah.
That's right.
32.
Instead of 13,000, it's 8,000. So of course, those are not for everybody, but they literally slashing prices almost every day. And I wonder what it means for the mother company, if they literally just need
money.
I guess so. Yeah. So let's see what the future will hold for Videndum. Of course, it's a kind of a different topic altogether, but I'm just, because we're talking about SmallHD, it's almost every second day there's something from the company. Not to talk about Sachtler, Manfrotto. It's almost every day.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, but it's nice to see them. They are still doing software updates. Like even when times are probably not so easy. I mean, the other thing they introduced is also there's expanded Canon camera control now, which is great. I mean, this is with SmallHD, the camera control is always a paid license, unfortunately. So you have to pay for the kind of manufacturer you need. But then you get quite comprehensive camera control. And in this case, C70, C80, C300 Mark III, C400, C500 Mark II can be directly controlled from SmallHD monitors. And there's a few more things that are now possible, which weren't possible before. The cool thing is now also, like if for rental houses and so on that use a lot of SmallHD monitors, it's this fleet control thing. So a lot of them can be kind of updated and controlled at the same time, which I think makes a lot of sense if you like have multiple of those in use in general. But yeah, for the end user, it's probably not so relevant. A related update is the Accsoon update. We also have the CineView M7, which consistently gets so many updates, which is amazing. I mean, just as a reminder, the CineView M7 and M7 Pro are monitors from I think the first monitors from Accsoon, 7-inch monitors that are also serving as a receiver. So I mean the Pro has the receivers built in. And it's the cool thing about those monitors is they're based on Android. So we did an interview with them a couple of times, but they explained that basically they already had this amazing app. They really had an amazing iOS and Android app for their other CineView products, which is basically just image transmitters. And it was such a good app. I mean, really, you had everything from false color to peaking and waveforms. Everything you needed in a monitor you had in the app from a very early point on. And I remember when I tested this the first time, I literally had an issue with the positioning of some of the icons, and I gave them feedback. And 2 days later, there was a firmware update which was pushed. It was incredible how fast they were moving with this. And they realized, having this app, that actually we could do monitors, because of course we can have Android run on, they can just acquire very good monitors, build a housing around it, and run the whole operating system on Android. So you don't need your own operating system like SmallHD has, which is of course much more costly to develop because it's controlling everything. In this case, it's literally Android running on those things, which also they leave it open. You can run other stuff there. You can you can play back clips even in a different app. You can install all kinds of Android apps on those CineView monitors, which is great. But it also allows them to just iterate much more quickly when it comes to firmware updates. And this time, they are pushing Sony EI control, that's the exposure index control, Nikon support, ARRI-Style false color, and a vertical workflow as well. So also, I mean, we know that they also had this bracket that I think I have a photo here. So they announced this bracket around IBC, which is basically mounting 3 of those monitors next to each other in a vertical workflow if you are doing multicam for vertical drama, which seems to be a thing too.
The micro
dramas, exactly. And in this case, and what you're getting now also is Nikon camera control, which is the first time beyond Sony and Canon. For the Z5, Z50, Z6, Z6 II, Z7 II, Z8, Z9, and focus control for the Z8 and Z9. Now, Sony
the
exposure
ZR is missing. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Sony exposure index control and shutter angle adjustment. New peaking focus assistant, contrast based versus color overlay. The ARRI-Style false color, which means Log C3 and Log C4 support, which is also Alexa 35 and Alexa 265 compatible. And now the vertical thing is now the UI is also vertical. So that's almost at the same time with SmallHD. The whole UI is also switching when you do that. And there's some workflow improvements to the DCI 4K workflow. Now, free update. They do not charge for camera control as opposed to SmallHD, and the M7 is $800 and the M7 Pro $900. So quite cool.
Very competitive.
How they are. I hope they also make a smaller one, by the way, at some point. They should do a 5-inch, which is really like a smaller on-camera monitor, which would be great. Yeah, good. Iodyne just expanded their Pro data line, which we reviewed before, with new 96 and 192 terabyte models. They're very affordable, right?
Not for me, but I guess for bigger production, I mean, wow, I tell you. Okay, anyway, so the 96 terabyte is $41,000 and the 192 terabyte is $85,000. Now, before you guys go like, wow, there are, of course, the lower capacity versions, which actually quite affordable now, and we're using them almost on daily basis. You have the 12 terabyte for $5,500, and the 48 terabytes for almost $20,000. So, of course, you pay here premium pricing for premium reliability
and speed.
And speed, that's right. And there are quite a lot of use cases for those Pro datas. 8K RAW, multicam, large VFX project, field production with battery, XLR power, and physical data transport where cloud is simply not available or not practical. Yeah, we know this is the bigger one that they have. We are waiting for the smaller device that was announced.
Mini,
that was announced, I think, over
Pro
a
Mini.
year ago. Like maybe
I think last time I did an interview was at IBC, but it was announced even before.
Yeah, so
it should be almost ready.
I hope so, because that will be the device that we can take with us when we're running and gunning. But it's good to see that actually they're able to do on the same platform, but just do higher capacity. And for those who needs this and do have the funds to buy something like this, I think
for a studio it makes a lot of sense. I mean, because you can plug in multiple computers at the same time and do collaborative work much more easily than just shuffling SSDs around, and also just at the highest speed. That's you don't need a fiber connected RAID and still have the speed, which is actually, if you have a fiber connected RAID, of course, we're talking about similar kind of money. If you have, but it's a server rack which you cannot physically move like this one.
And that's one of the things that we really liked, was the speed when we tested and reviewed the unit. It was
Let's move on to an update to ARRI AI, which now supports dirty multicam for Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve. So basically,
Nino, what is dirty multicam?
It's not as naughty as it sounds.
Okay.
What they mean with that is basically you can import a already synced timeline from Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve, and it doesn't prep, flatten, or rebuild it. So it keeps kind of the
structure.
multicam structure, which is important, of course, because of course, as soon as you usually move out of an NLE with a multicam sequence, it flattens it down, and then you can't go back. In this case, it's not true. So you can then work with it in ARRI AI and do your edits, whatever. You can automatically recognize parts and cut them out. And then when you're done, you can already send it back to the NLE and still have that multicam clip or sequence intact.
Maybe a word of what is ARRI AI for those who never
I think they market it. It's kind of sold as a assistant editor. So basically it analyzes your footage both in what is spoken, like the audio, but also what it sees.
You can see,
So visual search, which is actually something we'll also report about next week. And the Creator Studio from Apple, which now has similar features in Final Cut Pro, supports that, and I'm testing this. But this is platform independent, and you can use it with Premiere Pro or DaVinci or whatever. And so it basically, the idea is to do a lot of the assistant editor's work. Keep in mind, I mean, there's something that Dave, who is an editor, who wrote this article on Cinedy, kind of mentioned here, which is interesting, that of course, keep in mind that tools like this, because they also look at the content, will also make, whether you like it or not, some editorial decisions. Because if they summarize stuff for you, they have to kind of leave out some stuff for you. So you really always should look at those things with, fresh eyes and not trust it 100%. And that's not a critique of any of those tools. It's just a matter of fact that some stuff needs to be left out when stuff is summarized or That's how it is, right? So, but it's definitely speeding up workflows when it comes to finding that right moment. Or I think that happens to me all the time. I shoot a long interview, and then when you are editing it, you remember, this person talked about this, and then you can't find it. And it's so cumbersome to actually look for specific words or something like this. If you don't have a transcript, even when you have a transcript, they might have said it in a different way. So
It's
tools like
getting
this can actually find it in a much better way. And also just in general, like finding the right B-roll. This is already starting now also, that you can actually look for specific objects or subjects that you have filmed.
This is happening already also with Premiere Pro and others. It's much better to look for B-roll through the search button, and also even let the video be transcripted and then be able to find certain stuff. This is all good, but what I like ADAI in general is now also allowing the insertion of B-roll in general, which is very demanding task. If you think about it, when you're editing, and you know, or you have in mind something very specific in B-roll, and then let ADAI to try and do this. I really wonder how good this is working. This is something that we will have to look into.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that they, like they said that they added this dirty multicam feature, because it has been the most requested feature last month. So they're really listening to user feedback, which is great, which cannot be said about all of those tech companies, to be honest. But the smaller ones like ADAI seem to be really listening. And we know that real multicams can be quite messy, and they have, there are uneven clips. Not everything is started at the same time, disabled tracks and gaps, and it seems to be able to deal with this. Yeah. And it kind of removes friction for interview, documentary, or unscripted work. So,
if you have any experience working with ADAI, please let us know in the comments, because we're really interested to know if it's working well for you guys, if this is something that you expected. And it will be interesting to explore even further.
What I like is that they're not saying that it will do all the work for you. They say it will do about probably 80% of the preparation work for you, but the really crucial 20% leaves to humans, which is nice, because that sounds different to the Adobe marketing. Like when you look at Adobe brings up an update and they make seem everything like, okay, it's never true. And in this case, it seems more honest.
Before we jump into anything else, I just want to ask you something, because give me a second, because I was quite shocked. Did you see how the Adobe stock did in the last few months? It's unbelievable how much value it lost, because we went to the Adobe Max and so on, and you have this hype of new things to come. But when you look at the stock value of Adobe, obviously.
Well, I think a lot to do with Canva and Affinity, because Canva bought Affinity and is now giving it away for free. And a lot of those Affinity apps are directly competing with Photoshop and Illustrator, which are free now. And you can do 90% of the things with the free software now.
Can be, but since the beginning of January 2026, the stock value literally crashed. It's unbelievable.
I mean, this is something doing something with this. Yeah,
this is something we have to follow. I mean, I think
Adobe was smart in a way when all those AI features came along, because they were, if you looked at the Creative Cloud in general, in the past didn't have any of those features, these automatic features, and then you had these image generators and stuff like that. They did a good job of kind of jumping on this and integrating it as soon as possible, as soon as it was usable, and also at least promising that it is something that is, the rights are guaranteed, because they base it on their own training and so on. But they will still, on every side of their business, companies are nagging onto it, right? There's a lot of things you simply do not need Photoshop for anymore. There's a lot of things that can be done on phones now. There's a lot of, stuff that I used Photoshop for in the past, like isolating objects, is now something that can be done on your phone even, or with another tool in no time. You don't need it for that anymore. So I think that's just in general. And then, of course, when it comes to professional production software, they're competing with a lot of very good stuff on the free market. You have DaVinci Resolve, which is free. And then there is a very, very cheap studio version, which you never pay update for. And then now even on the desktop publishing side, photo editing side, you have the Affinity apps, which are free. So I think it's getting this whole market, which they used to dominate so much, and Photoshop and Premiere were kind of like, you needed to have them. You don't need them anymore. You can also work with free software now.
Well,
that's
obviously
probably
because
part of
it
it.
lost in the last 6 months around more than 20%. The stock value.
I mean, like, of course, I mean, that's probably all based on whatever they reported, which we don't know, or I don't know.
No, it's a public company, so they have to be very clear what they're reporting. I'm just saying that this
just saying it's, that's probably the environment they're struggling with, in general. So, but no wonder they do something like Adobe Max to kind of like, like push their new products as much as possible. But there's a limit.
Looking how the market reacted, at least the finance market, that was not successful.
Yeah. Sticking with the dreaded AI topic, I would say, let's talk about the Google-Sundance Institute Corporation that we reported about. So Sundance Film Festival happened last week. I think it's just over, or it's actually still running, and it will be over very soon. It's quite long always. So Google.org, which is their non-profit arm, I think, invested $2 million in Sundance for AI filmmaking education. Now, this is, it's interesting for various reasons. Of course, the Sundance Film Festival is kind of the epitome of independent filmmaking, especially in the US, but around the world. So if you have an indie movie feature film and you want to be recognized, if you get it into Sundance, it's very likely to get distribution after that. And this is literally where Google is tapping into. So they really are pushing hard to get their AI generative video tools, like used by filmmakers. And it's called the AI Literally Alliance with Sundance and some publications, the Gotham and Film Independent. Their goal is to train 100,000 filmmakers in foundational AI skills. There's a free online curriculum through Sundance Collab, and there's scholarships for Google AI Essential courses, which are not necessarily on just video stuff. There's an AI Creators Fellowship for hands-on experimentation. Now, what's the context? Google claims that the majority of media companies feel overwhelmed by the pace of AI. Only 25% of those companies are currently investing in training, according to Google. And of course, this is all part of a larger Google filmmaking push with their Veo 3 generative video model, the Flow app, and the Flow sessions. I mean, this whole Flow ecosystem is worked around filmmakers. And there's also, I think we reported about this, a Darren Aronofsky partnership, which already premiered at Tribeca last year. Now, so basically community-led, they're going for community-led education through established institutions. So through Sundance, they want to get all the AI filmmaking stuff into a broader filmmaking community, because we all know we are all kind of resistant, against, or a lot of people are resistant against really embracing generative video AI. And I think 2026 will be the year where this probably will have to shift, because they are reaching a level of quality where it's just too good to ignore in terms of how it looks and what it can do. So, that's just, what do you say about this development?
Maybe this is just to make me feel good or better. And I think you also know that I really love cooking. When thinking about AI, just in order to kind of eliminate some of the pressure that we might have, I can only refer to cooking. If I invite you today for dinner and you know that I'm cooking, you will be happy to come, and hopefully the food will be delicious. If I invite you for dinner and I order food home, you might be still happy, but that's not really me cooking. So it will be like, and that's exactly this. It's like me cooking / doing filming, editing during a production, or me ordering food to present it to you. And it's as if I'm doing stuff with AI. So there will always be the place for us to do. I think we discussed this all over the place, although I have to say, don't ask me why. Maybe because my daughter and my son really want a cat. I can suddenly see so many cat stuff, generative AI cat stuff on my Facebook.
I'm so happy you say this. I thought you were going to say you're going to cook the cat.
Not gonna cook the cat. There's no sauce for it. But it's just amazing that when I look at this, and I'm sorry guys, that's just a thing on my timeline. I'm usually not even spending time to look at some of the stuff. But it's like, besides being funny, it's like really realistic.
It's scary.
It's really scary, realistic.
Scary.
And my concern is that my kids, when they will grow up, or let's say differently, they're growing into a society that literally will not know the difference between reality and not, because you still have to find a cat that is really cooking, or a cat that is washing hair for another cat, but it all looks very realistic. So of course, and we don't know for how long this common sense in people will still be there before they go like, no, it's really happening. Earth is flat.
Sometimes next month we're going to have one episode of the podcast with somebody who dedicates their life in identifying AI videos and just really pinpointing where to kind of see it. I'm very excited about this.
Okay.
We're just working on the scheduling now. And yeah, because of course, I mean, the whole ethical discussion is endless. But in general, our position is that you need to stay educated. You need to learn about those things, even if you decide not to use them. But I think even there are ethical ways of using it. That's why we have an ethical generative video AI course with Drew Shirazi, who is already working on his next update to the course, looking at the newest models and how to implement them in an ethical way as a filmmaker who is using cameras, who is filming actual things. And this update will be out in February. So we just think it's important. It is wrong to ignore it. And I think it's too late. The cat is out of the bag. And
into the sauce.
Into the sauce. And you just have to inform yourself. And there are going to be, it's this disruption, like I almost compare it. Of course, it's not the same, but remember, for those of you who are old enough, the late 90s, early 2000s, when we had this completely overnight, suddenly everybody was pirating music and downloading music tracks through Napster, and nobody bought CDs anymore because the music industry just didn't give us what we needed. We wanted, like music on our iPods, which we could take anywhere. We didn't want these big CDs anymore.
Individual tracks.
They didn't give us what we wanted. Of course, that's not a perfect comparison, but I'm just saying it disrupted this industry so much. But a few years later, through lawsuits, through all those things, kind of like all the illegal stuff was reined in. And that's my hope. My hope is that when this AI bubble pops, and it's definitely a bubble, to some degree, it is a bubble. It has to be. And even the biggest AI apologetics already acknowledge that now it must be a bubble when the companies invest into each other and send money, in circles. When this bubble pops or deflates, which I hope, it will be less painful, then I think the traditional media players will hopefully step up and finally take them to court and define content partnerships that are beneficial not only to the rights holders but also the creative people. And
but my cooking cats will still be there.
You can still cook cats, but only AI generated ones. I will not allow you to cook actual cats.
Of course not.
But I'm just saying, when you compare this to the Napster time, the illegal now nobody actually pirates music anymore. Yes, the music industry is diminished. Yes, it's very hard to earn a living as a musician unless you do like live gigs. It is, it's difficult, but things are going to change. They are changing, but I think it's not all the end of the world. People are still making music and people are still going to make films. But those tools are going to have to be integrated, and they're going to have to be integrated in an ethical way. Otherwise, I don't know.
But in any case, to Sundance and Google, I think it's an interesting move. I don't know if it's only a feel-good move or it has something beyond for Google, because it's still quite a lot of money. And we also have to see...
2 million is not even...
No,
what is
it's
that
nothing.
for Google?
No. For Google, it's nothing. But for independent creators who are seeking for
They're now worth more than Apple. So
for independent filmmakers who are seeking for some compensation on either what they did or want to do, it's something we can't ignore. Hopefully,
but that's not about compensation. This is just them investing into courses and stuff like that.
Education. It's good to know. Hopefully, they will put us on the radar with MZ2.
Well, we're gonna do our own ethical education without Google, so that's fine. So that's news in the AI world, which we thought is important to report about because it kind of connects the establishment of indie films with big tech. LumaFusion received an update for the Android version. Now, this is like LumaFusion, a lot of people always think about the iOS version because it's been around longer and has more features. LumaFusion for Android now also gets head and tail transitions. That is auto cross dissolve on both ends of a clip. Of course, if you use this on a tablet, it's most usable. I wouldn't recommend using it on the phone. Multi-clip transitions can be applied by batch, so you can just select multiple clips at once and then just apply the same transition. Finally, you can find the selected clip in the library, which is bidirectional, so you can select a clip on the timeline and just have it shown in the library, and vice versa. If you select a clip in the library, it can show you that clip on the timeline if you have used it. And it supports the APV codec, which is something that Samsung has implemented. It's Samsung Advanced Professional Video Codec, which goes a little bit head to head with Apple when it comes to ProRes implementation. So basically they're marching towards feature parity with the iOS version, which is still more advanced and I think has a much higher version number because they started much earlier. And the APV support really matters for Samsung users, Samsung phones, because it basically needs around 20% less storage than the alternative. So it's actually not really competing with ProRes. It's more like, like a more efficient codec. Good. What else do we have?
We have the SWIT PowerCells. I think it's quite a nice move from SWIT. By the way, soon they will celebrate 30 years, which is amazing. It's also nice to see that the company is now catering not only the higher end, but us as filmmakers. And I think it's a great move to have a reputable company who is doing third-party batteries, basically.
For which brands, for which cameras?
You will have those for Sony, Canon, Nikon, and FUJIFILM. We didn't hear anything about L-mount for now. This is something that we will have to ask them. Each battery looks a little bit different, and you
mean Panasonic cameras?
Panasonic cameras, that's right, or Panasonic, or even Leica cameras. Doesn't matter. But we didn't hear anything about this. They're using high quality batteries from Panasonic, like the cells in those batteries. And I think there are two nice features. One is there's a 4-level LED indicator, so you can easily see if the battery is charged or not. And there's also a USB charging built in, so which personally I really like. And I think all of us, we will agree that those batteries are, I think, 20-30% cheaper than the originals. So this is a very welcoming move.
I wonder if they all support the full, communication. I mean, they say it's fully compatible with in-camera communication, which is important. So you still know the full capacity. I mean, if that is the case, I would always prefer those batteries over standard batteries simply because of the USB chargeability. You don't need to carry an extra charger. That's just something that can shrink your... I mean, sometimes when you use 2-3 different cameras on a shoot, you have 2-3-4 different chargers, maybe 2 chargers per camera on a shoot. It just is so much bulk that you are carrying.
Yeah.
If you can avoid that, it's so great to have just USB-C charging. Yeah.
One legit question that we have from as a comment: if those can be charged and power the items at the same time. I don't know exactly how you do this because the USB-C. First of all, we don't have the answer. This is something that we have to ask SWIT. But if you look, if you're
You mean
watching
in camera or?
that's the thing, I guess, in camera, because that's what you will need it for. I mean, you will need the USB connector in every family of batteries is a bit different. So
On a different position.
Different position. So it's not necessarily that you'll be able to put the battery in your camera, power the camera, but also charge at the same time. Yeah. So, but this is still a legit question. If
So you mean like if it's at the bottom,
That's right.
just leave the flap open of the camera.
Exactly.
But you don't need this because you can probably charge the camera through the USB-C port of the camera. You can charge the battery also, no?
Again, it's not always that every camera allows you to charge and power the camera at the same time.
Yeah.
That's why it's a legit question. This is something that we will try to come up with an answer very soon.
Okay. Good. Last but not least, we have actually two more pieces of news. We reported on cinematographer Bob Poole on filming elephants with a FUJINON Duo HZK 25-1000, a $260,000 lens used for wildlife filmmaking.
Yeah. So first of all, even before talking about the actual his experience, we actually interviewed Bob next to Victor Ha from Fujifilm during, it was a year ago, during IBC. No, it was NAB. And that was really nice to hear. I mean, the person is an expert in wildlife filmmaking, and it was interesting to hear from him about his experience in general, and so much respect to animals, and especially elephants, that he's obviously very interested in. And the FUJINON Duo, the HZK 25-1000 millimeter, gave him exactly this thing, to be respectful to wildlife filming, because of the distance that you can actually have from those from the animals themselves. The thing is that this lens, besides the price, which is what, as you said, $265,000 special order.
It's a rental thing.
It's a rental thing for sure, but it also weighed quite a lot. It's like 28 kilos. So he had to modify and find a way to actually put the lens, which was connected to an ARRI Alexa 35, and find a way how altogether mount it on his car while safaring, let's say. Yeah.
But I mean, this is a standard thing. I mean, I've shot with it's also 50-1000, the Canon, and I think the weight is similar, maybe a little bit less. But that's only
I don't know. This is something which is for very specific applications. I don't know if many will actually choose this path. I think it was more of an exercise to show that it's really working. You can do this. Also, this lens has an optical stabilization, which is of course helping. And it was also nice to see that Bob used the GFX 102 for some of B-rolls or whatever. And again, it shows me how capable that camera is, and hopefully Fujifilm can give a bit more through firmware updates like Open Gate and so on, that will make this camera even more capable.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he mixed in a lot of wide-angle shots actually from the GFX 102 by just placing the camera in a cage on the ground next to the elephants. That's cool, because that's always the problem if you use those long telephoto lenses. It kind of, if you only use this, it almost distances you too much from whatever you're filming, because it is physically far away, but it's almost like looking through what is it? Speculars, like
binoculars.
Binoculars.
Yeah.
So it's very far away, and that's also the impression that you get as somebody viewing it. So if you mix this with wide angle, it's much more engaging.
Yeah. But in any way, it's not that Bob went just for his fun to film in the safari. This is actually part of a PBS Nature program, and you can literally go to pbs.org. They have different creators who shot different films, and we have a link in the article itself. If you're more interested to see his complete work, I think it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. Last but not least, let's quickly talk about a educational article that we published on VFX. So we have a beginner's course for After Effects. Now we know that most of you are probably from the cinematography niche, so you're not really about VFX. That's why we have produced a After Effects course for beginners, which is basically showing you how to do VFX compositing in a very simple way. This is by Digby Hogan, an amazing editor and post-production post-production house owner from Australia. Very fun guy. I mean, you should really dive into that course because he's really great at presenting everything. And he, in this course, showed an example of how to add clouds to a green screen parachuter shot and how to make that look convincing in a very easy way, right? So the key steps are scaling it, animating the position, keyframe movement, and of course, adding an easy ease. And the philosophy is that basically small adjustments and layering can result in very convincing composites, which you can also implement as a cinematographer if you're only rarely doing this kind of stuff for your own shots. You know, it's not as hard as it seems. We also have a separate course actually on AI masking because it's become so much easier to actually mask something in normal footage, you know, like recognizing subjects without using a green screen also. All of this stuff, which also is related to our discussion we had earlier with, you know, the whole Adobe struggles and so on. I think it's just that all those things have become so much easier with the new tools, and we really try to educate filmmakers about them because you can implement them in your everyday workflow without making things too complicated. But this is a very easy way of actually getting started with compositing in After Effects, and it's not as hard as you think. It really isn't. All right, so let's wrap it up here. That, again, I think was quite a long episode, and thanks everybody for watching. See you next week on CineD Focus Check. Next week it's going to be episode 102, and don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment, send us an email at podcast@cined.com, or subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or of course on YouTube. And hear you next week.
Bye.
Bye.